Shalom, shalom. This video is about the book of Acts, chapter 2, verses 12 to 24. How everybody who calls on the name of Adonai will be saved. And the background is the crowd of pilgrims that went to Jerusalem for the Moedim and the specific Moed of Sukkot. Heard the online of Shavuot. Heard the apostles speak in their own languages, Shavuot and Pentecost, depending on whether you use the Greek expression or the Hebrew expression, counting for the Feast of Weeks or counting days, as is the Greek manner, for 50th day, Pentecost. Okay, and they were all amazed and perplexed, saying to each other, "What does this mean?" Others, poking fun, were saying, "They are full of sweet new wine." But Peter, standing with the 11, raised his voice and addressed them. "Fellow Judeans and all those who are staying in Jerusalem, let this be known to you, and pay attention to my words. These men are not drunk as you suppose, for it's only the 3rd hour of the day." That's about 9 a.m. But this is what was spoken about through the prophet Joel. And what he's quoting is Joel 2, verse 28 to 32. And Joel wrote, "And it shall be in the last days, says God," Elohim is the name that Joel used, "that I will pour out my ruach on all flesh. Your sons and daughters shall prophesy, your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. Even on my slaves, male and female, I will pour out my ruach in those days, and they shall prophesy. And I will give wonders in the sky above and signs on the earth beneath, blood and fire and smoky vapor. The sun shall be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the great and glorious day of Adonai comes. And it shall be that everyone who calls on the name of Adonai shall be saved." And while I was reading this, I didn't prepare in my notes to talk about it. I just saw the color of the signs on earth, blood red, fire and smoky vapor. The fire is yellow and the smoky vapor will be black, and that's also the colors of the mighty army that Adonai will raise. Okay, let's look at it. And you can read about that army in Revelation, but I don't know the specific verse off the top of my head. Kepha, Simon Peter quoted Joel chapter 2 verse 10, and then he quoted also Joel 2, 28 to 32 above. But we see how YESHUA quoted the same reference in Matthew 24 verse 29 to 31, also in Mark 3:24, and also in Luke 21:25. And even in the book of Revelation chapter 1 verse 7, regarding what will happen at the end of the tribulation before his return. In the book of Revelation chapter 6 verse 12, this is called the outpouring of the 6th bowl of Adonai's righteous wrath on the earth. And it comes also from the prophet Isaiah chapter 13 verse 10 and chapter 34 verse 4, from Ezekiel 32 verse 8 and Zephaniah 1 verse 15, they all picked up the same point. And if you read all of that, then you will understand Paul's explanation in Romans 11 verse 26 to 27. Without reading the prophets and the Gospels, you're not going to understand Paul. And that is in this exact moment that all Israel will be saved. Remember that Kepha, Simon Peter, was addressing Jews from the diaspora. He was addressing all Israel in his speech. So that Paul merely echoed what Peter said here. The invitation to call on the name of Adonai is extended, though, also to Gentiles who are grafted in onto the family tree of Abraham. Because Kepha, Simon Peter spoke about the end of the tribulation period, there's no speculation regarding a rapture in his words. The whole rapture doctrine was launched only about 2 centuries ago, and there is no, or at most very little, biblical basis for this doctrine of rapture. I labor the point because I dread that people who base their hopes on a pre-trib floating away before the trouble starts may lose their misguided faith when their doctrine is proven wrong. Furthermore, because Adonai is true to his word, and this is all about Israel and not at all about anybody else, the Christian church never replaced Israel in this. The Gentile believers who follow Yeshua in his Torah ways will be adopted like into the family tree of Abraham, like the mixed multitude who was adopted and accompanied Israel in the exodus from Egypt. The pattern will repeat. And this is what Adonai promised. And I hope that gave you some food for thought, something to ponder on. And I pray that you will have shalom. Shalom.